Hey guys, it's Libby, and today I'm going to tell you about 6 books that I have read and loved, but I have not heard anybody else on BookTube talk about. If you are someone who has talked about these books and I've missed it, please send me links to your video. We can be friends. So the first 2 are part of a series, and they're probably like the most normal of the books that I'm going to tell you about. Most of these are kind of weird, and I can understand why they haven't really broken into the mainstream, but I have no idea why these haven't broken into the mainstream. They are The Meaning of Night and The Glass of Time by Michael Cox. These 2 books are part of a historical trilogy, but there's only 2. So let me explain that. Michael Cox had been sort of involved in literature. He had curated some Victorian ghost story collections. And then he got diagnosed with a vascular cancer, and the steroids he was on, hyped him up, so that he was able to write The Meaning of Night. And then he wrote The Glass of Time a couple years later, but he died before he was able to finish writing the 3rd book. So this is an incomplete trilogy, and I know some of you are like, nope, not partaking in that, but I have sufficient closure. The first book, he wrote the first book not planning to write a second book, so it's got a totally satisfactory ending, and the second book also has a totally satisfactory ending. You could read the first book without reading the second book. You could read the second book without reading the first book, but it's better if you read the first book. And of course, you can enjoy both of these without getting the 3rd book, although I do have all sorts of fan theories going on if you want to talk about them. So The Glass of Time, the sequel, is good, but The Meaning of Night is the one that's really amazing. This is neo-Victorian, and it's mainly set in London, so basically it's like Dickens but with more sex and drugs, which, always a good thing. And our main character is named Edward, and this is his confession. Let me just read the first sentence to you. After killing the red-haired man, I took myself off to Quinn's for an oyster supper. So, the first thing he does is murder this random stranger on the streets. And you would think that it would be impossible to love him after that, but you totally do. He is such an interesting person. He's possibly the most interesting character that I've ever read. I've read a lot of things, and I'm trying to think of someone who's just there's more meat on those bones, and I'm not coming up with anything. Sorry, Hamlet. But you learn that Edward is a very smart man. He was a very smart boy. He went to Eton, but was thrown out because of the actions of his one-time friend, who has a great name, Phoebus Rainsford Daunt. And then as his life has gone on, Phoebus has just taken more and more away from him, and now he is filled with murderous rage. It's so great. There's also a lot of really excellent London-ness going on in here. If you live in London or you're taking a trip to London, this is a must-read. My mental map of London has been created by this book. When I went to London with my mom a couple of years ago, I dragged her all around the streets surrounding St. Paul's Cathedral, because Mom, we have to find Paternoster Row. That's where Mr. Treadgold's law firm is. And Edward has a sort of mistress girlfriend who lives in St. John's Wood. So now, St. John's Wood is not, the red light district of London, but whenever anyone mentions St. John's Wood, I'm just really, really marvelous and absorbing. The next book is a collection of short stories. I have talked about it before. It's called Kissing the Witch, Old Tales in New Skins by Emma Donoghue. You may have heard of Emma Donoghue. She wrote Room, as well as many other books. She has a new one. She wrote The Wonder, which just came out. But this is a collection of feminist fairy tale retellings, and they're feminist, but they're not modern. They still have an old-timey Grimm's Brothery type feel, but sometimes the ladies get together, or the lady saves herself. The Beast in Beauty and the Beast is actually a woman, and after you read the first story, you will totally ship Cinderella and the fairy godmother, who is the one who actually cares about her and is trying to make her happy, not the prince. Obviously, why did I not see this before? It's a really quick read, and it's really delightful. The next book is the only contemporary I've read since graduating high school. Yeah. It is The Seas by Samantha Hunt. And it's not like totally a straight contemporary. There's some magical realism maybe going on. I don't know. Maybe she's just crazy. It's one of those sorts of books. So this is about a teenage girl. She lives in like as far north in the United States as you can get in Maine. And her, like, I'm gonna tell you what the premise is, but the plot is like really subtle. There's a bunch of other sort of everyday life things going on around this, but the crux of the movement of this story, that was a great sentence, is that her father a couple of years ago killed himself by walking into the ocean and drowning, and our narrator is dealing with this by imagining that she and her father are mermaids, and so he was not killing himself, he was returning to their people. And she has a crush on a totally age and personality inappropriate guy, and he does not love her back. And she is really bothered by this because in all the stories, when a mermaid loves a man and he doesn't love her back, he ends up dying, and she really doesn't want him to die. She's like, just love me, god damn it. You've got a little bit of small town America and a little bit of mind bendiness. It's great. The next one is a book that I haven't read since starting my booktube channel, and I haven't talked about on my channel yet. I think I have at least mentioned all of these other ones, but that is Reader's Block by David Markson. I picked this up in my used bookstore. I don't know if this is like a small press. It's published by Dalkey Archive, which is not something I've ever heard of, so this may be difficult to find. But this book is the most different from all other books that I've ever read. Yeah, maybe. So this book is like for people who read The Handmaid's Tale and were like, yeah, that was good, but it wasn't really stream of consciousness enough for me. This book is the most stream of consciousness you can get. So the book is the sort of narration of the thoughts of a very old man who has dementia, and he's a writer, and he's trying to write, he's working on his next book, and he's sort of plotting things out, but he keeps sort of being distracted by all of these other thoughts that he's having, and then he like changes his mind, so the story he's working on, like first it's gonna be like a one character novel, and then oh no, I need to introduce another character. Okay, we're set in the mountains, but now I need to like set it on the shore and like completely change the plot around, and like it used to be a man and now it's a woman. The only way I can explain this to you is to read some of it to you, and I'm just gonna open to a random page and read it to you. Just roll with me. Ebenezer Cook. Tecumseh. The Wittgenstein pianist brother Paul, who lost his right arm in World War I, subsequently commissioned Prokofiev and Ravel and Richard Strauss to compose one-handed works for him. Actually, he appears to have been an unexceptional performer. Surely someone will call. Legend says that Hesiod was murdered because of seducing a friend's daughter, who then hanged herself, and that when his corpse was discarded at sea, it was brought back by dolphins. T.E. Home was killed in action in Flanders in 1917. Obviously in town, but even at the beach, protagonist has no car. There are stores on a highway not far from the latter, however. From his entrance at the rear of the house, there is a path leading through the brush that way. The nearest village is only a short walk also. One follows the highway, or for that matter the beach itself, to get to it. Tecmessa. Isaac Newton died a virgin. In Brussels, 1873, Verlaine shot Rimbaud in the wrist and was sentenced to 2 years at hard labor. Not long thereafter, Rimbaud burned all of his remaining manuscripts at 19, and insofar as is known, wrote no more verse. That's this book. If you liked that, read it. If you were like, what was that crazy awfulness? Maybe not for you. And the last one is Bellman and Black by Diane Setterfield. Let me just see if I can get the cover to catch the light. There's a raven's wing here, and it definitely works in person, but sometimes you can get like a green, you can see a bit of it, a green glint It's really pretty. This is a cover buy, even if you don't like the contents. So this is by Diane Setterfield. She also wrote The 13th Tale, which is amazingly good, and I have heard some people talk about that one, but not so much this one. This is her second book, and it got not as good reviews on Goodreads, and I'd say that, like, I guess I'd say 13th Tale is better. 13th Tale is definitely more accessible, because this book is really hard to describe. Like, there is a plot synopsis, or like a teaser, on, you know, the Just Jacket. But, like, in order to give a teaser for this book, you either can only give, like, this tiny detail of what happens in the prologue, or you have to tell the entire plot, because, like, there aren't really big events that happen in the story. It's just his life, which is very slightly diverted off the usual course by the events of the prologue. So it's set in the 19th century sometime. I believe we end up in kind of the 1870s and 80s, but it starts before that, when our hero, Bellman, is a boy, and he and the other boys in the village are throwing rocks, as you do, and one of his friends dares him to throw a rock at a rook, or a raven. And so he does this, and he hits the raven, and he kills it. And then this angers the race of ravens, and they, like, slightly alter his life, and it's so cool. So it's then about, like, professional versus personal happiness, and the Victorian institution of mourning, and the textile industry, and you just read it. Like, just go into it blind. I can't do justice to describing this book. You'll just have to trust me with this one. So I do hope that you go check out any of these books, and if and when you do, come back, talk to me about them. I am eager to talk to these books about someone, because as far as I know, there's no one out there who's read these.